Welcome to C3 In This Together, 30 minutes in our own voice for our series, Disabling Disabilities. Today, we will hear from someone with a lived experience who's coping, managing, and navigating disabilities and special needs. My hope throughout this series is that together, we will be the generation that creates awareness that individuals with disabilities and special needs are differently enabled. And I want to say that again, right? That individuals with disabilities and special needs are differently enabled. We also want to be the generation that makes clear that a disability does not mean a lack of ability. Today, I'm so honored to have our guest with us. Our guest is Craig Johnson. He's a pastor, author, and an advocate for those with special needs. Pastor Craig is the founder of Champions Club and Champions Foundation. He currently serves as the associate pastor at Lakewood Church with Pastors Joel and Victoria Osteen. Pastor Craig, let me personally express my appreciation to you, Pastor Joel, and the entire Lakewood team for inspiring us to hope and to pray bold prayers. Yes, thank you so much. We're so honored to have you for this series.
Oh, it's an honor to be with you today. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, let's jump right in. We know that your time is so valuable, and we can't say enough how much we appreciate you being with us. But let's jump right into our time together today. Tell us your story, Pastor Craig, your journey surrounding disabilities and special needs. And of course, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to tell the story about Connor's first speech with Pastor Joel. So tell us your story and your journey.
Well, thank you. Yeah, really our story begins when we came to Houston. Our son at the time was about 1.5 years old. I've been married to my wife, Samantha, for 32 years. I have 3 children, Corey, who's 30, Courtney, who's 28, and then Connor, who's now 18. But when we came to Houston, we were about a year away. We were in the old building, and we were about a year away to move in the compact center. And so it was a very, very exciting time. And about 6 months into us being there, we're in a matter of about 3 weeks, everything shifted with my son, where my son would go and play with other friends, playmates. Now he'd just go and sit by himself and kind of stare off the wall and play by himself, where he would give us a hug and kiss and show so much emotion. Now he stopped showing any emotion whatsoever and would kind of look away. Where he would say, "I love you, mommy and daddy," and say all these different types of words. Now he stopped speaking altogether. And for us, and probably for a lot of special needs parents who experience something like that, it's kind of like if your child was in a car wreck, and where one day they're one way and another day they're another way. And many of us, you're in shock. The vision that you had for your child is at the beginning stages of shifting, and you're not sure what to do. And I've watched families. Obviously, it's been affected by this. And the mom, who's maternal, she attaches herself to the child, and she wants to find every type of therapy, cure, prayer. She's right there. The dad connects with their child emotionally. And so when that shifts, the moms kind of look at the dad and saying, "Why aren't you, connecting the same way I am?" And the dad's saying, "I'm just trying to figure it out and connect with my son." If there's any other issues in the marriage, you'll see many times that it can affect their marriage. And so we didn't know what to do. We were just trying to find any way that we could help our son. And I remember during that time, we were trying different types of therapies, different things. And Connor just continued to struggle. And he was struggling like a lot of kids with meltdowns. When you can't understand what they're needing, when they are so frustrated, they can't get those things out. And I'll never forget, it got really bad one day at a grocery store where my son wanted some candy and my wife was telling him he couldn't have it. And he probably had the worst meltdown he'd ever had. And I remember my wife is just physically and emotionally just trying to help him get out of the store and get to the car. And she called me and she said, Craig, I'm not sure if I can do this anymore. Mm. And you gotta understand, my wife's my hero. She's one of the strongest people you'll ever meet. You'll have those moments as a special needs parent where you're not sure if you can do it. And I tell people, if they ask me what's the key of success, I say it's easy. It's never giving up. Because somewhere along the road, God will meet you. And so we just kept on taking steps. But I remember when she called me on that drive to work to go into Lakewood, it's probably one of the lowest times of my life. And I just asked God why. Not why we'd had our son. We loved our son. But God, why is he struggling so much? Mm-hmm. We're trying everything. And it was the most intimate conversation I've ever had with God. And God just spoke to me. He said, Craig, your child is not a burden. Your child's a gift. Wow. And I said, God, I know what you mean. We love our son, but we're trying everything. And God said to me again, he said, Craig, your child's not a burden. Your child's a gift. He said, right now, you're looking at everything that's wrong with them. You're not looking at what's right. And I said, God, what do you mean? And he said, Craig, I'm going to use your son to reach millions of people. Now, you got to realize, I've heard my son speak for 3 years. And even as a pastor, it was a real vulnerable moment. And I remember picking up a bottle of water in the car. And I said, God, my son can't even ask for a drink of water. How's he going to reach millions of people? Mm. Now, I'll never forget what God spoke to me. And these are the words he'll speak to you whenever you're looking for hope, whenever you're in that desert. And he just said, do you trust me? And I said, God, you're all we've got, but I trust you. And I thought things were going to get better, but they actually got worse. The meltdowns, the struggles. Here's that trusting time, right? That testing time. About 3 months later, my wife called me from upstairs. She said, Craig, get up here. And I thought something was the matter in Connor's room. I run upstairs. I said, what is it? She's crying. And she said, Craig, I was putting Connor to bed. I was reading a couple of books. And she said, I began to pray. And all of a sudden, he began to speak. And he began to say one word after another, one sentence after another sentence. Now, like I said, you got to understand, I've heard my son put together 2 words in 3 years. And I said, what do you mean begin to speak? And she said, Craig, he spoke. And tears began to roll down my cheeks. And I said, what did he say? And I'll never forget, she walked me over his bed. She leaned over his bed and she said, Connor, say it for Mom and Dad. Say it again. My little 5-year-old boy looked up at us, and all of a sudden he began to speak. And he said, this is my Bible. I am what it says I am. I have what it says I have. I can do what it says I can do. He does the whole spiritual declaration that we do before every message. Well, I knew this was God. I mean, I knew it was a miracle, because most kids, even if they speak, aren't quoting a spiritual declaration. And so I later found out we were bringing Pastor Joel's messages home, and he was taking those messages up to his room, and he was playing them while he played. And it didn't matter if the message changed. That declaration was the first thing he heard, and it went over until it became his first words. Wow. And so I went on Wednesday night and I spoke at Lakewood on Wednesday night, and I showed Connor saying his first words, a spiritual declaration. And, we're criers at Lakewood, so people begin to break down and cry. And all of a sudden, Pastor Joel comes up to me afterwards and he said, Craig, can I speak about this? And I said, absolutely. And when Pastor Joel spoke about it, of course, millions listened to him. And when he spoke about that, video went viral around the world, and millions of people heard Connor's testimony, and God's prophecy was fulfilled that millions of people would hear.
Oh, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And there's just so much to unpack in that short time. And I want to highlight just a few of those for our friends who are watching. You talked about, firstly, the impact on families, right? So we want to highlight that you mentioned that, and we're aware of that as clinicians. Just be aware as family members, as loved ones, the impact that it can take. If one family member is hurting, then all the other family members are hurting. Also want to highlight something that resonated with me is what you said, that God spoke to your heart, that Connor is not a burden, but he's a gift. And we want to highlight that for family members and loved ones who are listening. If you would just hear that again, right, that your loved one is not a burden, but certainly a gift. And then I like what you talked about seeing what's right and and not so much focusing on what's wrong. So absolutely amazing. Thank you, Pastor Craig, for sharing that. Let's ask this question. What would you say to someone or a loved one who's managing disabilities and special needs? What would you say to the individual themselves? And then, of course, speak to caregivers, loved ones, pastors, leaders. Yeah, what would you say?
Well, the first thing I'd say is I want to encourage you, even though the enemy will tell you different, you're an amazing mother.
Wow.
You're an amazing father. You're amazing caregivers. That God picked you and everything, that God allowed you to have this gift is not by chance. And I want you to know that you're doing a great job and that God has a plan for your child. This is very important to understand that at Champions, we're not about just caring for the kids. We're about pointing them to their destiny.
Yes.
And help them navigate how to get there. But the first thing you have to do as a parent, wherever you're at right now, is you got to realize one thing. You can't worry about the future. You can't worry. When you get into that headspace, it's going to really mess with you because sometimes for us, it's one step forward and two steps back. But you only have grace for a day. God didn't give the Israelites manna for 2 weeks or a month or 2 years from now. He gave them manna for that day. Why? Because he wanted them to trust him.
Yes.
He wanted their complete dependence to be up on him. So when you realize, man, you know what? I'm going to just make the best of this day with my child, yes, with my teen, with my adult, with who I'm caregiving for. I'm going to make the very best of this day. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about 2 weeks from now or 5 years. God's got that in his hands. And I always say this, you've got to let go of the past. You got to embrace today and you got to trust God for your future.
Yes.
And if you can do that, that's manageable. Yeah. That's something that God can work with. And so I would say you've got grace for a day. I think it's so important too, is that you need to realize what I said, that sometimes we're looking at what's wrong, especially when we're going through the challenges, the meltdowns and everything. But God wants his power to be revealed through these kids, teens, and adults. Yeah. It's like John chapter 9, verses 1-3. Here's how the flesh looks at. Even the disciples who were walking with Jesus looks at the blind man and says, Jesus, was he born blind because of his parents' sin or his sin? But Jesus just brings such a powerful statement. He says, neither, so that my power might be revealed through them. And here's why I want to encourage you. Many times we're praying for our children to be healed, and we should. God's a healer. But if you look at that scripture right there, Jesus didn't heal the blind man until three verses later.
Wow.
And what I believe he says right there is I can work through their challenges. My power can work through them, or my power can heal them. And he could do both. And so just embrace the masterpiece God's given you today and believe for their future that they have and that God's got a plan. And I would say this, if God can use my son, who's now really impacting the world, doesn't God want to use your child?
Yes.
And he's got a plan for each and every one of your children. And I really believe that we're going to see more and more that God is going to use because we're bringing it to light.
Well, first of all, I'm getting ready to pass the offering plate. Oh, the word of hope that's just coming alive, and I know it's doing that for me, and it will do that for those who are watching. And man, Mercy, this is just so rich in a wealth of resource. I want to highlight, what you said. before we move forward about the plan that God has for each of our children. And one of the things we say is, from a clinical perspective, and of course, from a biblical perspective, is that we want children to become the best version of themselves and fulfill God's plan and ultimate destiny for them. I also want to highlight what you talked about, encouraging parents. Um, it's so important that we say to parents what you said, and I'll say it this way. One of the things we've said to parents is children are not so concerned about you getting it right. They're just concerned more so about you being there for them. And I want to highlight that because so many parents, as we come alongside parents, whether it's in a clinical setting or in a church setting, whatever setting that might be, parents often question who they are and if they're getting it right. But we really want to lean in with you, those who are listening, and saying to you, kids are not so much concerned about you getting it right. They're really more so concerned about you being there for them. Pastor Craig, what would you want people to know about managing our mental health? Of course, a lot is being said about mental health, and let me pause here and just commend the work that you're doing there at Lakewood to end the silence, the shame, and the stigma of mental health, as well as suicide. We can't say enough as clinicians, as people of faith. I'm clear that what influences me is my faith, is the work that I've done in the local churches, as well as the clinical work that I do. But thank you so much for all that you do to end the silence, the shame, and the stigma of mental health. But what do you want people to know about taking care of our mental health?
Well, one of the things, everybody needs to realize, and that doesn't have to be hidden, is we all deal with mental health.
That's right.
We've all probably been depressed at one time. We deal with anxiety. We deal, and some may be more intense than others. But if we can all come together and go, hey, we're all walking through this, and let's find the right help, the right therapy, the right group help to come alongside of these families. And there's not, this stigma that there's something wrong with you, is so false. And that's what I loved about Jesus. Jesus provides solutions. He met needs. And it's us in our human condition that looks at somebody that's going through something, or they think they're less than. And it's the complete opposite. I think on a biblical perspective, there's nothing more important than your devotional life. I really believe that every day, putting Jesus first in your devotional life, whether that's through devotionals, whether it's reading God's word, whether it's through quiet time, prayer time, you need to start your day. I see this, your devotional life will dictate your emotional life, how you look at things, how you view things that day, and allowing Jesus to serve you. Here's the thing. Jesus didn't come to be served. He came to serve. And many times we try to carry these burdens and this heaviness and load on our own. We try to figure it out. And we put so much even on our doctors that help us, our therapists that help us and everything. But Jesus wants to be there for you. And then he gives you tools and great doctors and people and medicine, different things that can come alongside of you to help you in your journey. And everything, I just think it, start there with your devotion life, then get the help that you need, and don't look at it as something that's wrong with you. Look at something that you're not only going to work through, but it's going to make you better in every way, right. And that you're going to find that light at the end of the tunnel, and you're going to find that hope. And I believe that God will give you just what you need when you need it. So again, I'd say this, don't give up. Keep doing your best. Find the right help. Put Jesus first and watch God do miraculous things in your life. And I've watched that in my life, and I've watched that with our staff. And we just want to bring as much awareness around as we can.
Yes.
We want to embrace people that, hey, we're all walking through this. But you know what? There's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's hope around every corner.
Wow, thank you so much. And my friends, I want to lean into just a few things that Pastor Craig said. I'll start with kind of where you ended, that we are all in this together, right? We want people to know that we are on this journey with you. We are leaning in with you. We are coming into the dark places with you. And we're saying that there's hope. Get the help that you need. Also want to highlight what you said, Pastor Craig, that we all deal with mental health, right? One of the things I love to say is, if you have a brain, if you have a mind, if you have emotions, if you have feelings, you deal with mental health, right? And we believe in the work that we're doing as clinicians, and with the work I do with C3 in this together, right? We believe in mental health parity. And that's this idea that mental health is no different than your medical health, right? The other thing, and I'm smiling as I say this, and my friends, some of you have heard me say this before, we need to treat mental health the way that we deal with roaches. So, Pastor Craig, I'll let you lean into that, kind of think about that for a moment. But we need to treat mental health the way that we deal with roaches. And what I mean by that is roaches function in the dark. The moment that you turn on the lights, then the roaches go scattering, right? And that's what we're doing today. We are turning on the lights. My friends, we're getting ready to wrap up, but I have one final question for Pastor Craig. What do you want people to know about the importance of disability and special needs awareness?
Well, I think I would love for people to one thing, and it's what we really did was, uh, you know, I see so many people victimized by special needs,
Wow.
and I understand it because it's overwhelming. But there was a key thing that me and my wife did early on, and I heard it said this way: the best thing that you can do when you're going through a storm is be good to someone else.
Wow.
And it gives you a different perspective. And I think, one of the things, you may be going through a storm right now. And when you're looking at special needs, but when you can be good to someone else, whether that's a small thing or that's what we did with Champions Club, we just start helping out other people. And it's kind of like this: you're like an eagle. When the eagle's in the middle of the wind and rain, it doesn't stay there. What the eagle does is spreads its wings as wide as it can. And what happens is the wind begins to lift that eagle up out of the wind and rain into the eye where it's beautiful. And they are looking at their storm, not in the storm. And when you're good to someone else, you're like the eagle spreading its wings. And you really move from victim to victor, I believe, when you're good to someone else. I do it even when I get down. You know what I'll do first off? I will text somebody just to encourage them. Yes. When I'm depressed or I'm down, and it lifts me up. And so, because it gives me a different perspective. And so I think that's so important. I think lastly, and just to close, is that our kids, teens and adults and families, God has a great destiny for them.
Yes.
And he wants to work through them, but we have to be available. And we've got to allow God to work through us. Don't stay in your issue, but allow God to show you how he wants to use you and your family.
Wow, I absolutely love that. We are going through, reach out and help someone else, right? Another way that we've said this is, if you want to be a miracle, and you've said that there at Lakewood, Pastor Joel has said that, if you want to receive a miracle, then you yourself need to be a miracle. Become a miracle to someone else. Well, Pastor Craig, this has been absolutely amazing, a wealth of resource. I know so many are going to receive hope through this. We can't say enough how much we appreciate you and honor the work that you do and your family. How can people reach out to you? And please tell us about your work with Champions Club across the world. And how can we reach out to you?
Yeah, Champions Clubs are developmental centers that deal with 4 key areas: physical, intellectual, sensory, and spiritual. And so we've launched Champions Clubs now in 104 sites in 18 countries. Wow. And we have one at Lakewood. And if you want to find out more about Champions Club and how we do this, we not only come alongside the kids, but we come alongside the parents. And you can go to championsclub.org. And we would love to help and serve you in any way that we can.
Thank you so much again, Pastor Craig. And thank you for your story. Thank you for your journey, bringing hope across the world. And we want to say to our friends who'll be watching, listening, this is why we do this. We want you to share your own story. Take your own story and make it into a project, make it into a message, become a hope and life-giving person to someone else. Pastor Craig, as we close, I felt like a fitting way to close our session would be to give our friends a virtual tour of the Champions Club. So we're going to show a clip of that at the end of our session today, as well as a clip of Connor and his amazing journey. We want to speak well wishes, if that's okay to you. We want to speak blessings continually to you and your family, to Connor, and just the work that you do. Again, thank you so much, Pastor Craig, for being with us. My friends, please stay tuned to the end of this session as you're going to see a couple clips. You'll see a clip of a virtual tour of the Champions Club, as well as a clip of Connor. We also want to remind you, for more resources about special needs and mental health, I want to personally invite you to visit our website at c3inthistogether.com. That's going to come up on the screen. Also, Pastor Craig mentioned how you can reach out to him, which is championsclub.org. That will be on the screen as well. Also, if you've been impacted by this video, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, C3 in This Together. Please share this video, comment, and let us know how this video has impacted you. Because again, together, we want to bring hope to others that's around us. We also want to remind you to take our 21-day Thankfulness Challenge, as well as our NextGen Hope Challenges. My friends, thank you again for being with us for 30 minutes in our own voice, and we look to see you sometime soon as our series continues. Thank you again, Pastor Craig. Please give our regards to the entire Lakewood team. I want to say as well, the worship team, we want to highlight them as well in saying that the work that they do is both cathartic and therapeutic. So please let them know that they're offering therapy as well. So many blessings to you again and your family. Thank you so much. My friends, we'll see you sometime soon.
Welcome to Champions Club, where we have 4 different stations where kids can be developed physically, spiritually, intellectually, and mentally. I'm Craig Johnson, and I want to tell you a story about how Champions Club began. It all started with our son Connor. When he was 2 years old, and originally where he was speaking, giving us a hug, or saying I love you, it all shifted. And we soon found out he had autism. When I was walking through the halls of the church, God spoke to me and said, Craig, what are you doing for children? Then he said, Craig, look at what you're doing for special needs children. And at the time, we weren't doing very much. And God said, Craig, those kids deserve the very best, just like every other child. So we began to develop the Champions Club. Every Champions Club is a little different, but they have these same elements to the program. A sensory room, where the room is filled with different equipment designed to engage their 5 senses. It's a space that works as a calming room, or for certain kids, can help to bring them out. There's an educational room, where kids can learn numbers and shapes, letters, work on reading and writing skills. There's tools and technology to help nonverbal kids in learning and communicating with the world around them. We also offer a physical therapy space for kids to strengthen their bodies and release their energies in a positive way. Of course, we have our spiritual space, and this is to teach Champions Club Christian curriculum. We teach it through the 7 G's, and they learn Bible stories, and it helps them develop their relationship with God. There's a teens program for ages 13 to 18 that teaches the Champions Club curriculum, plus a life skills component. And also a program that helps develop adults into meaningful roles as ushers, greeters, working in music and with children. And they learn to work with mentors to serve with purpose in the church community. Champions Club is a transformational space for families with special needs. And we are thrilled to continue to grow the program to more churches and organizations every year. Connor was at this time about 5 years old, and we had dealt with this for 3 years of him not speaking. But all of a sudden, one night, my wife came calling from upstairs, and she said, Craig, get up here, get up here.
You're not gonna believe it. You gotta come listen to this. Kind of was like mumbling. I was like, what'd you say? And then it kind of got clearer and clearer. And so I went over to his bed and I'm like, tell me, say it again. And it was the entire, this is my Bible. I am what it says I am. I have what it says I have. And
I can do as I can do. They're not always of the word of God. My forehead can fist, my eyes is the word.
My heart is accepted. I will never be the same. I will bow to receive, irreconcilable, indescribable, everywhere seed of the word of God. I will never be the same.
never, never, never,
I'll never be the same. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
We didn't know how it happened, but we found out that, we were bringing home these messages of hope on DVD. Little did we know, Connor was taking the DVDs up to his room, and he would put them in his DVD player, and while he played, he would listen to every message over and over again. It didn't matter if the message changed, that declaration was at the very front of it. And it became the first words they spoke, and we knew it was a miracle of God because he could have learned anything. He could have learned a Disney movie, anything.
But it was from there that the speech did come and the language did come. And I think that just gave us that confidence of, okay, he can do more than we know.